We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and now on the Internet on knookmedium.com, serving Richmond, Oakland, and the San Francisco Bay Area. Our guest by phone, author of Trident, Jason Redman. So, Jason, your book, to me, it's a dynamite book on several levels. It's like 3 different books. And it's in a lot of ways, it's a management book. I mean, if I were teaching a leadership class, I would use this book. I mean, it's dynamite in that regard. Can you talk a little about that?
I can, and Marty, I will say this, that I think it is much more of a leadership book. You know, because when I look at the difference between leadership and management, I think there's a lot of people out there that can manage. You know, they have the ability to organize things and put them in order. But leadership is a whole different level. Leadership is the ability to motivate and inspire people to accomplish a common goal. And in the military, that goal often is in incredibly dangerous situations. You're motivating and inspiring guys towards a common purpose on the battlefield. And it takes a tremendous amount of discipline within yourself to understand what it is to lead at that level. And that really was the journey of the book. Things that I really failed to see when I was a young man, and mistakes I made that almost ended my career as a young leader, and then to grow up and really understand later what it is to be a leader. And that's that journey.
Yeah, because, you know, you were great as a warrior, but you didn't have that leadership skill because you were too busy looking at it from your point of view rather than looking at it from the point of view of the team. And that was a lesson that took you a long period of time to learn. Talk about Ranger School, how you ended up in Ranger School on top of SEAL School.
Yeah, when you talk about a long way to learn, I mean, I almost ended my career of my own accord just from my arrogance and my ignorance and refusing to listen to other people around me. And all of that culminated, you know, I was really burning a lot of bridges. And I think all of us know people like that, you know, those guys that they get things done, but they leave a path of destruction behind them in order to accomplish it. And, you know, people just practically hate those people. And I was one of those at one time. And all of that culminated with a bad call on a mission in Afghanistan in '05. And I found myself in pretty hot water standing in front of my commanding officer explaining myself. And thankfully that commanding officer believed in my abilities and believed in my potential. And instead of saying, hey, you're out of here, he said, hey, I want to humble you and really instill some new leadership values. And one of the things that came about was I was sent to Ranger School, which Ranger School is a tremendous school that the Army has. It really is a combat leadership school, and they teach guys about leadership through hardship, through adversity, through lack of food, lack of sleep, adverse conditions. And you also wear absolutely no rank in Ranger School. You know, the private is working right alongside the colonel, but neither of them have any rank. And so it humbles you. You have to learn how to work as a team and motivate and inspire those people towards that common goal.
You know, I'm a little concerned about the future of our military based on our current leadership. As an example, I have a grandson who's in ROTC at Fresno State and in the Army, and then I have another grandson that's going into the Marines this summer. And my biggest concern is rules of engagement, and I think personally that the military have their hands tied because of these rules of engagement, and I'd like to find out your view about that.
You know, rules of engagement is always a really tough subject. I will say that this is a very ambiguous warfare that we're fighting, you know, with the enemy that can, you know, drift into any situation because they dress like the locals, and they'll blend in with the locals one minute and they'll have weapons hidden and attack us the next. So it's very tough conditions to fight in. That being said, I do think that at this time we've gotten to a point that the rules of engagement have become too restrictive. They're not allowing our guys to get out there and do what we've trained to do, which is go after and hunt and eliminate the enemy or capture the enemy. So what's happened is I think we're placing guys into situations where they're way too exposed and they're getting killed or they're getting injured, and they're not allowed to go out and do what they've been trained to do. So that really is the point where the military leadership needs to be telling our political leaders, hey, if you're not going to give our guys the ability to conduct a mission, then it's time to bring them home. If you want to win this war, if you have the fortitude to win this war and take out the enemy, then give them the ability to do what they're trained to do, and trust them and trust their leadership to make the right decisions on the battlefield. And unfortunately, I don't think that's happening right now.
And that's expanding the conflict, actually, by not letting our military do what they can do. You know, there was a comment Bush made on a cruiser, not on a cruiser, but on a aircraft carrier one time. He said, mission accomplished, and he was crucified for it. And now we've got this president saying mission completed. And unfortunately, I don't think this mission is completed or will ever be completed based on the situation in Afghanistan and Iran and Iraq right now. Any opinion on that?
I agree. You know, in 2005, when I was there, we were really starting to get restricted on how we conducted operations. You know, I talk about this in the book. We actually got in trouble doing an operation. We did a nighttime assault, fast roped in, breached doors, and apparently they were really what always happens, and understandably so, the local population, war is a horrible thing. So the local populace doesn't want people, imagine if somebody came into your neighborhood in the middle of the night and, blew down your neighbor's door or even your door. Obviously the neighbors would not be very happy, and you'd be going to the government saying, hey, we need some restraints on this. The bottom line is there's a lot of relationships that have to be built here. The problem is in Afghanistan, there's a ton of corruption. So the local leadership there in Afghanistan will say, oh, we'll take care of this. And our political leadership is having to try and appease that. And that's where the rules of engagement start to get very restrictive and not allow our guys to do anything. So we saw that in 2005. Even though we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that there were enemy forces, we had intel packages that were built up on that. We wanted to go out and execute them, but we weren't allowed to do it. And at that time, the SEAL team said, okay, fine, we're going to focus on Iraq for the time being. But we knew that was going to build back up. And I think the same thing, unfortunately, is probably going to happen in Afghanistan. Or, what always happens, you're going to drive the enemy to another location. In this case, you're seeing a big surge of Al-Qaeda and violent extremists in northern Africa.
Wow. We're having a conversation with Jason Redman, author of Trident. Jason, your book is fascinating. I've really enjoyed it. And you start out the book talking about your injuries and the battle you were in. Tell us what injuries you have as a result of that battle, of that engagement.
So I was caught pretty much at point-blank range by a PKM machine gun only about 45 feet from me. It raked me across the body. Thankfully, my body armor protected my midsection, but I took rounds in the left elbow and then a round in the face. And that started a whole new journey. Obviously, it ended my operational career. Almost lost my arm. Thankfully, very good orthopedic surgeons managed to save it. And But the longer journey really was rebuilding my face, replacing the bone I lost on the right side of my face. I had to have my nose reconstructed, my jaw reconstructed, my eye muscles were damaged, and the orbit around my eye had to be reconstructed. So it took about 4 years to put me back together, which, sounds like a lot, but there are so many guys out there that have been through much more than me. I mean, I have friends that have had over... I know a Marine that's wounded that's had over 200 surgeries.
Wow.
So,
wow.
This is what the American people don't understand. Our guys are coming home with these devastating injuries, and it's so hard to walk that road, which why it was important in my book to try and show, hey, just coming home doesn't mean you're home. You're now on a whole new battlefield, really, and it is the battlefield of being put back together, and the battlefield of fighting infection, and the battlefield of fighting the medical system.
Sure. Now, and right now you're here in California at a Wounded Warriors thing with Gary Sinise.
That's right. I'm honored to be here with the Gary Sinise Foundation. Gary asked me if I would become an ambassador for their foundation, and I'm humbled to be doing that. They're doing great things, and we're out here right now in California for this event called Hollywood Salutes Heroes. I don't think a lot of people would believe it, but there are quite a few people in Hollywood who are actually fairly conservative and are strong supporters of the military. And they came up with this idea, along with Gary Sinise, to honor all these warriors. So we spent the day at Disneyland yesterday, and today, thanks to both the Gary Sinise Foundation, the USO, and American Airlines, we now have some other exciting things going on. I think we're headed down to Hollywood right now.
Now, again, your book is Trident, and people can get that from Amazon or any bookstore. And how are sales going?
Sales are good. We have not broke the bestseller list yet, but sales are slow and steady. And what's really great that I'm very happy with is the reviews are coming back for exactly the reason I wrote the book. And I think a lot of people out there are like, oh, you know, they're buying it because they think it's another hardcore SEAL book. And obviously there's some hardcore combat in there. But the book is much more a book on motivation and inspiration. It's a book on leadership and overcoming adversity. And it's a book on a love story on my wife and my journey through my military career and injuries. So it's really a book for anybody, and the reviews reflect that.
Oh, yeah. And Jason, like I say, it's 3 books, and really thank you for your service, and we'd love to have you back.
Marty and Clay, hey, thank you guys for having me on.
Tell Gary,
I'm honored to be here, and let me know anytime. I'd love to be back on.
Tell Gary to keep up the good work.
We'll see in 160.
Absolutely.
We'll see in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.